Greetings. Welcome to the Spread, NESN's Football Picks Podcast. I'm NESN.com's Mike Cole, joined once again and as always, and for a final time this season by Ricky Doyle. Ricky, how are you?
I'm doing well. This is a special edition here. We've moved it. We've got ourselves a neutral site game.
Yeah, it is. It's in the line with the Super Bowl itself, right? The lights are brighter. We are playing, as you said, at a neutral site.
Yep.
We've had to kind of shift a lot of things around and playing at a different time.
There will be no halftime pageantry, or at least unless you wrote it into the
that you know of. Yeah,
we'll see what happens, I guess. But yeah, here we are.
Yeah, we're here to do Super Bowl 57, final episode of the Spread this season. We'll get into our picks. We'll do the side. We'll do total. Do props. Do an MVP. Maybe not necessarily in that order. And then we'll get out of here and we'll be done for another season. I was just about to say, I didn't really go into last week's or 2 weeks ago and see how we did. So as far as I'm concerned, that's ancient history. That doesn't really even matter.
Right?
I actually don't even remember what I picked. We'll a quick check-in and kind of just getting caught up. I don't really have any existential thoughts this week. I'm pretty good with life in general. No real complaints.
So we're trending upward.
Yeah, right. So there's no sleepless nights thinking about the finality of time and how it just extends beyond the lifetime of everyone. So what did you think of the conference championship games?
Well, now I got to remember what happened. Oh, they were whatever.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like the wild card round was fantastic. Yeah. Did not expect that. Everything else since then has sucked. As we get into Super Bowl 57 between the Eagles and the Chiefs, I feel like I should mention that. I didn't really.
I guess the better question is, what do you think of the matchup? Like overall, are you into it? Does this move the needle Does this move the Mike Cole needle?
No, I guess so. It's you start to think about it, right? This is the 57th Super Bowl. Not every year is going to be Tom Brady versus, insert big time, matchup, right, storyline, et cetera, et cetera. Not every Super Bowl is going to be, just the greatest matchup that you could imagine. There are so many clunkers over the course of time. I think for all things considered, this is the best we're going to get. I think it's just, I'm having a hard time getting excited about anything with the 2022-23 season. It's just been like that the entire year, right? We've talked about this throughout the entire thing. I think as far as the matchups could have gone, it's hard to say there was a whole lot better than this. Like, I guess in hindsight, I probably would have liked to see I think the Bengals interest me more than seeing the Chiefs there again.
Sure.
But it's hard to argue these haven't been the 2 best teams all season.
Yeah. I mean, I could talk myself into this, and I think it is because it is so evenly matched, and obviously we'll get into that with the spread's pretty indicative of that and the line movement in general. But also just like, not only are they evenly matched, but there's a little bit of a contrast in styles, and there are some storylines you can kind of talk yourself into, whether it's just the Mahomes legacy type stuff, or Andy Reid against the former team, or Jalen Hurts, trying to cement himself as one of the elite quarterbacks. So there's stuff there to latch onto. And maybe not in this particular region. This is a tough one if you're a Patriots fan in the region that we operate in, because I'm not sure what your rooting interest is in this.
Yeah,
it doesn't apply to you, but I'm saying for
I don't really care.
This is a tough one.
It doesn't matter. Like, I guess that's the
you
thing.
And I we've gone over this like off air about stuff. I'm rooting more for like the storylines and the intrigue, and I think that's where I'm with you with like the Bengals thing. I think there would have been a little bit more to sink our teeth into, because I got Chiefs fatigue, man.
The developing take I have is, if you're a Patriots fan worrying about, well, first of all, like, if you're worrying about the Patriots getting run down as a dynasty by any team, it's stupid. Like, it's never going to be matched again, so don't be sensitive about it. Like, it's just never going to be equaled. I know, but like, if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, what does that do? It doesn't do anything. Tom Brady still has 7 Super Bowl rings. He won 6 of them here. Belichick's the greatest of all time. Brady's the greatest of all time. Can't be beat. Not going to be beat. Not even by Mahomes. It's just not going to happen. I'm fairly confident in that take. I will say, though, the one team, if you're going to think about it, like, maybe they get caught or come close, the Bengals, I think, are the better chance at this point in time. I think Burrow's got that Brady-ness to him. So you don't have to worry about that. And, I like the Eagles thing. I guess people around here probably hate Philly for a variety of reasons. I think Philly is probably fairly detested across the country and in places that aren't Philly. So I could see that. But other than, I don't know. It's just one of those ones where it's like, I guess I could see why you hate both teams, but also I can see why you wouldn't want to root for either one of them. So you just kind of hope for the best possible game, I guess.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, this is the best team in the AFC versus the best team in the NFC. So I guess from that standpoint, I can't really complain too much.
Well, you could
get on the aesthetics of it, because
do you want to talk about the aesthetics?
I know that
it's not bad. So, like, as much as I would have liked to see the Bengals in it, like I said 2 weeks ago, Bengals Eagles would have been the ugliest Super Bowl of all time, in my opinion. I think the Eagles need a reset. That I don't want to get off on a uniform tangent 5 minutes into this, but
you usually say that for the end.
Yeah, it's whatever. Like, if they were wearing their old Kelly green up against the Chiefs, this would look sick. I don't even know if Kelly green's the right shade of green, but I think this is emerald. This is forest. This maybe this is Kelly, and I'm thinking of emerald.
Same hue,
sure, whatever.
In emerald, I would
people
say.
are like, why am I even listening to this? Yeah, I think it's fine.
Consult with the Roy G. Biv.
Well, yeah, on Sunday it'll look fine. Bengals Eagles would have been a tough look.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that.
Do you have any big Super Bowl plans?
I don't. How do you usually tackle the Super Bowl? You a stay-at-home guy? You got a
I am
to get to. Or,
I am.
I mean, I imagine now it's a little bit different with the little one, but
I'm stay-at-home. I've been stay-at-home for a long time, longer even before it was cool. Before the pandemic, before the child, I was stay-at-home just because I have no friends. I would like to maybe have friends at some point again in my life, and I think this is a good. And this is like the perfect year for having an actual Super Bowl party. Like, it's not a whole lot of do you really care if you miss a few plays here and there? But yeah, largely it's stay at home, cook up some stuff. Probably do some ribs on the smoker this year. Yeah.
Ribs.
Yep. Probably have something in the crock pot because it's not a Super Bowl without a crock pot.
Yeah, you speak in my language.
But other than that, so what do you got planned?
Not much. I'm with you. I'm more of a stay-at-home guy usually. I'll go to a local watering hole where I know everybody in there, and it's more of a homey type feel, because I don't like the going out into the unknown. It's like I want to watch the football game. I'm not here to screw around, and
especially if your team's involved. The people who go out for
that's wild. That's negligent.
I mean, I guess if you live around here and a Patriots fan by like 8 or 9, you're like, well, we can
get a house party or a small gathering, whatever.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah. So, all right. I don't have a whole lot else. I mean, we'll probably break off into some tangents as we get going. My laptop has not died yet, so we're off to a great start.
You are on life support over there.
I am, yeah. Do you want to get in this? You want to just get after this?
Yeah.
All right. Super Bowl 57, Chiefs, Eagles. I think the point spread opened at 1.5, 2.5 even for the Chiefs as soon as this thing was set, and it swung back pretty hard. It's kind of up and down over the last week and a half leading up to Sunday, but it's still done pretty strongly at Eagles 1.5. I'm seeing here. We get these like emails from different sports books. BetMGM says the Chiefs winning would be the best outcome for the sports book. It feels like people have hammered the Eagles pretty hard, as indicated by the line movement. Totals was 50.5, up to 51. Did a quick dive. Spreads of 2.5 or less. Didn't happen a ton for like the first 30, 40 years. There was 3 Super Bowls with a point spread that low, between 1 and 44, 45. And then since the second Giants-Patriots Super Bowl, there have been 5, and this is the 6th. So we're kind of in a new era of tight Super Bowls. It's nice, I suppose. Everything points to this being a close game.
Yeah.
If there's anything else, I mean, you just look at some of the trends. Betting favorites, ATS. This one's wild from Ben Fox at VSiN. ATS 27, 27, and 2.
Wow.
We're split down the middle. Chiefs are underdogs. Patrick Mahomes 7-1-1 against the spread as an underdog in his career. That's the best winning percentage of any quarterback as a dog since the merger. KC, by the way, has been favored in 15 straight playoff games, so we're going to probably deviate from that. Philly, this is their first game away from the link since Christmas Eve. And that's really in terms of notable storylines about the actual game you want to hit right off the bat. So I guess, Ricky, I'll give you you are the visitor, so to speak.
I mean, it's
you hit first. Do you have a play on the side here?
So I mean, the side the spread itself is almost just moot.
It's a base.
It's kind of a coin flip.
Yep.
I think especially so when you talk about the Super Bowl, when the team that wins usually covers, and if I have this correct, it's 47-7-2 against the spread. The team that wins covers as well. Last year, obviously going away from that trend a little bit. I think the Rams were 4.5 point favorites and won by 3. But yeah, no, this is. I mean, it's more or less a coin flip. You mentioned the line movement. One thing to mention on that. So 18 times in Super Bowl history, the line has moved 1.5 points or more from the opening to closing. The direction that the team's direction that the line moves toward. So the Eagles in this case.
Yep.
16-2 straight up, 14-4 against the spread.
Wild. That seems hard to even comprehend. It bodes well for the Eagles.
Fairly
obviously.
Big sample size.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I mean, as far as looking at this game, I guess the thing for me is, am I gonna do it? Am I gonna fall into the trap again? Like now that I think back to our conversation during the championship weekend about, I think we were both on Cincinnati. And
yeah.
It was just it was so difficult in that game to find a reason to take the Chiefs other than Patrick Mahomes or Andy Reid, and just putting your trust in sort of what they've built institutionally in Kansas City. And that's kind of where I'm at with this game as well, because I just look across the board and it's just there's so many matchup advantages in favor of Philadelphia. I mean, the trenches, offensively and defensively. I look at Philadelphia and just obviously their pass rush is good, but just the diversity of their pass rush and the number of guys that can get after the quarterback. Philly's secondary against Kansas City's weapons, who, I mean, you throw in some of the nagging injuries that they've been dealing with, already down a body. It's just, there's a lot of things outside of the quarterback that lean Philadelphia, and then if you're on KC, it's like, well, right, you're just putting faith in the coach and the quarterback, which I get. If that's the route you want to take, I mean, I would understand that, and I would understand that if you did that a couple of weeks ago against Cincinnati. But for me, I'm leaning Philly because of all those advantages. It's just, to me, it feels like there's a lot of different ways that they're going to be able to beat you, whereas Kansas City, much more needs to go right, and you're probably going to need an all-world performance from your quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I did for NESNBets.com, I did a tale of the tape, and you run down the numbers and you look at everything, and I kind of tried to focus in on some of like the more cliche things about what it takes to win a football game, and then try to quantify those. So ball security, ball possession, trenches, things like that. I looked at some of the advanced numbers to try to quantify and put them on an equal playing field. The results were pretty eye-opening. Philly across the board has the advantage. I'll just run it down real quick. These are among the things that I looked at. Philly has the advantage in total DVOA, defensive DVOA, special teams DVOA, defensive EPA per play, turnover differential, points off turnovers, giveaways per game, big plays per game, big play differential, pressures allowed per game, PFF pass block grade, which they ranked first in the league, and PFF pass rush grade, which they ranked first in the league. I look at that and it's like, okay. I'm almost leaning toward, I would be looking at alternate lines. I think you can get like, for them.
So we're falling into the trap.
Yeah, I know.
I know. A couple weeks
but
ago.
So I will say though,
obviously, I don't think the disparity was that big in that game. Like the Bengals had their share of weaknesses. Obviously, the offensive line being a huge one, what came back to bite them in that game. So I think Philadelphia's a little more shored up than Cincinnati was. Maybe they don't quite have the quarterback play, although it's close. But yeah, it is for like.
I know.
To go back to it, it's like
at the very least, though, in hindsight, I undersold the impact that playing in Kansas City would have on that game. It clearly did, and related to that, I undersold the impact that the snow in Buffalo had on neutralizing anything that the Bills could do on a pass rush, and probably made the Bengals' offensive line look better than they actually did. They looked in Kansas City like an offensive line that had injuries across the entire unit. Now you've got arguably, by Pro Football Focus's grading, the best offensive line in the NFL. I just think, yes, it's possible that they wreck the game up front. Kansas City does. Steve Spagnuolo is like, I'm not just saying this just because he's a Springfield guy. One of the the totality of his resume is somewhat unimpressive, and there are stretches in which his defenses look like hot garbage. But like in a one-game thing where he has to come up with some sort of game plan, like when it gets to this time of year, that Chiefs defense typically comes alive. Like
it's amazing how they get like his knack for getting his defense better as the season progresses. Yeah, especially when you get into.
And we'll get into a little bit more on that when we get to the total, because I do have a couple of numbers on that. So, maybe we're doing the same exact thing, but I would like to explain that away as saying maybe we didn't consider some of the things that we should have. We're probably doing the same thing here, but like I said, I tried to look at everything I could, and a lot of it just came pointing, even like discipline. I didn't look at that in terms of penalties. I think Kansas City committed more penalties this year. We'll get to that as well. And I think too, like I was looking, Action Network they have an awesome Super Bowl betting preview thing. But they looked at, experience, and do you have an edge when you're an experienced team? Clearly, the Chiefs have the more experience here, with Mahomes having been to the Super Bowl, and certainly Andy Reid. Quarterbacks with, the Super Bowl experience versus first-timers, 19-15 straight up, 16-18 against the spread. Pretty much down the line. Coaches with more Super Bowl experience, 18-17 straight up, 16-19 against the spread. And even then, you could probably explain away some of the advantages that those players and teams or coaches have had, because they're, for starters, what is it, like 25% of it is Belichick and Brady?
Yeah, right.
And it's like, yeah, they're the best of all time. So, like, the numbers aren't totally, worthwhile in that regard. So, I think maybe that experience thing is slightly overrated, unless, Kansas City comes out and really takes a stranglehold of this game early on. Going up against that Philly defense, I don't see it happening. Especially, too, and you kind of hit on it with the injuries. You've got Mahomes who's dealing with the ankle thing. He's certainly going to be in a better spot than he was last week or 2 weeks ago, but it can't be fully healed. And Travis Kelce certainly looked okay after having the back spasms, but that's something that can come back at any point too. So, and especially when, I don't know, now I'm really reaching, but a lot of standing around, a lot of waiting at the Super Bowl. Long halftime, does your things start to tighten up? I don't know.
Well, we saw it essentially, 2 years ago when Mahomes was dealing with that.
It's the same. Like that's the other thing too. Yeah, I think it was a toe.
And looked obviously amazing in that AFC Championship against Buffalo. Flash forward a couple weeks later, and you're going up. The level of competition defensively is ramped up a little bit, and he's running for his life, and is clearly hindered a little bit by the ailment, and the rest is history. So I think there's some parallels to draw between that matchup against Tampa Bay and this matchup against Philadelphia from a just a talent standpoint on the defensive side of the ball, in which this could be a long day for Kansas City.
So I went back. That was part of my tale of the tape, 2020 or whatever it was. Yeah, 2021. We started
2020 season.
2021 Super Bowl. See,
yeah.
now you lose me. Yeah, he was at that foot injury, the toe injury. He was pressured on 31 of 56 dropbacks in that game. And like I wrote in the story, it's like that's the type of thing. You go back to the biggest example is the Giants-Patriots first one. Brady pressured on 23 of 53. Like in a one-game sample size, it's hard not to side with the better pass rush. And I think Philly, for as good as Chris Jones is on his own, has the better pass rush overall. And I have bigger questions about the Chiefs' offensive line than I do about Kansas City's. I don't want to like completely deduce it and reduce it to that, but I think that's probably going to be the difference maker here.
So you mentioned one thing at the beginning, and I'll ask you this if this is a concern for you at all, because I think this is maybe the one thing that I look at that gives me a little bit of pause from an Eagles standpoint is you mentioned they haven't played away from Philadelphia since Christmas Eve. I mentioned this going into that Giants game where they hadn't really faced anybody. Like they haven't had a game where they needed to really elevate. And it hasn't changed since then because they steamroll through the Giants. Yeah. They face a team with literally without a quarterback. Now they're facing the best quarterback on the planet. There's been a lot of games this season where, one, their strength of schedule is, by some metrics, the easiest in the NFL, and they've just kind of run away in a lot of games. So, like, if they get down into a situation where this is tight in the second half, like, then maybe that's where the experience thing kicks in. Like, I know on paper the trends suggest that the experience isn't a big deal, but looking at these two teams and you get into that second half, it's like, well, who knows?
Yeah, I see both sides of that. At the same time, ball is ball, right? Like, and
you would think, yeah.
Like in the third quarter or the fourth quarter, and things start getting uphill on you. Like, do you sit there and be like, oh my God, we've never been in the Super Bowl before?
Right.
What do we do?
But just a number that jumped out at me when I was looking the other day. So Jalen Hurts has only thrown 27 passes all season when trailing or tied in the second half.
The flip side of that is they don't trail.
Right. But I'm saying if they get into a situation where they are trailing, and you got Mahomes who's thrown 148 such passes, 5.5 times as many, and obviously the track record speaks for itself. It's a whole different beast. And like, you don't know until they're in that moment. So
and my only point is, like, I don't totally disqualify Hurts. Like, I don't think Hurts can't do it just because I
agree with that. And that's ultimately why I think I continue to lean Eagles. But it is something that it's just, when you sit there and it's like, that scares me.
It is true. There's, like, if you think back,
I wish they had that one game.
Yeah, exactly. There's not like that, that drive or whatever. At least I don't think so. I can't remember. It certainly hasn't happened in a while because A, he was hurt, and B, they've beat the piss out of everyone in the playoffs. Right. I will say, though, Football Outsiders has them as playing the easiest schedule in the NFL this season. The Chiefs played the fourth easiest by the same metric, and Philly did go 7-0 against playoff teams when they had Jalen Hurts starting. Granted, like, I think a lion's share of that was against teams that were in their division who probably weren't very good to begin with, but that's something to consider as well. And they have gotten extremely fortunate to get to this point. But
like you said, though, it's not you can only play who's in front of you. Obviously, if you want to throw another cliche in there, but not only have they won those games, but the fact that they have just beat the brakes off so many teams. It's like, all right, they passed the eye test.
Yep.
And you look at the personnel on both sides of the ball. You're like, there's clearly great talent offensively and defensively. This isn't like a team where, say like a Tennessee or something stumbled into the playoffs, and you look at all these hollow victories where they edged out like 4-point wins over a weak schedule. Like, I don't get that same feeling with the Eagles. It's like, sure, they might have played a little bit of a soft schedule, but they kicked everybody's ass, and they have the talent. Like, it's all there.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it doesn't feel like smoke and mirrors with them, whereas maybe some other matchups you might look at it and say, all right, there's a little bit, the favorable schedule certainly played into their success.
Definitely. So I think we're both leaning Eagles here, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't, when I have numbers or when I have bets down on Sunday, I don't think anything on the side. Like, I mean, maybe the money line if you wanted to really make a call on this. It's just this one. It just feels like too much. I don't want to call the spread a stay away, but like it's just one of those ones where it's like I can probably find better value betting on other things than the point spread or even the money line here. Maybe the total is one of those things, and the fact that this thing keeps moving up gives me a little bit of hope. I think we're both on the under here.
Yeah,
under 51.
And I think we were both heavy on the unders in the conference championship.
We've been on the unders since
really,
the divisional round.
Yeah. Because there was that stretch in the wild card round where a bunch of overs.
Everything went over.
But they're all pretty. They were empty overs. There were some short fields at play. Like it just felt kind of fluky. And I think the following week, you saw some inflated numbers as a result of that. I think you're probably going to see some inflated numbers just by virtue of this being the Super Bowl, and I think you're going to get a lot of public support on the over in this game. Yep. So that leads me to I'm leaning under. We've already mentioned how good the Eagles defense is and how underrated the Chiefs defense has been really since I want to say like their bye, like right around week 8 or week 9 is when things kind of started to turn for them. So yeah, you look at it's a high total. Totals of 50 or more in the Super Bowl. You have 3 overs, 9 unders, and a push. If this plays out similarly to that, the Chiefs Super Bowl against the Bucs, this is gonna go under.
Yeah, I'm with you. You made a point. We just kind of hit on it as well, talking about the Chiefs. But Philly has. Well, there are people who want to point or poke holes in Philly's defense. I think largely because they haven't played a quarterback the level of Mahomes, but they've really dominated most of the teams that they've played. So there's certainly talent there. Maybe the secondary is, or the middle of the field. I guess it all starts with the pass rush. Like I guess that
maybe
kind
the
of
middle
hides.
of the field.
Yeah.
And like, sorry, if you're the Chiefs, this would be a big Travis Kelce game, obviously. And I think, that's probably going to be the case regardless of the opponent, but I think especially so against the Eagles because, they haven't really played any quarterbacks, but I look at their defense and I'm like, from a talent standpoint, I don't know that there's a lot of weaknesses.
No. And they're actually 6th in DVOA versus tight ends this year. So they've done pretty well against tight ends as well. But I think we all agree that Philly has a very good defense. Kansas City, by virtue of being in the middle of the pack in the rankings, defense maybe not their strong suit, but like I said earlier, they've come alive. And you kind of just hit on this too. I've got the numbers to back it up. Since week 15 and including the playoffs, they're 8th in the NFL in EPA per play allowed. They ranked 21st in weeks 1 through 14, so they've really turned it on over the last 2 months. They've gotten a lot better. Again, like I said, Spagnuolo's got this knack of finding a wrinkle, whether it's like they moved around Chris Jones last week or 2 weeks or whenever it was, without having really done that all year. Like the Bengals made an adjustment in the second half. They were doubling Jones, and then on a gotta have it 3rd down, Spagnuolo moved them to the outside. And it's like stuff like that in the course of one game can really make a huge difference. I think you look at the Philly defensive or offensive line is very good, but their left tackle Jordan Mailata is probably their weakest link. So maybe that's something Casey can kind of key in on here. You're always talking about the Super Bowl, a little bit of slow starting. Again, when you're talking about 2 offensive teams like this that are very good, every minute matters when you're chasing that number. And I think if this is a slow starting game, it's going to be hard for them to kind of catch up. Again, we haven't talked about Carl Cheffers yet, but he's going to be refereeing this game. I was going to
say, how much stock do you put into the officiating?
So this is a good one. Bet Labs via Action Network. Under is 11-1 in 12 playoff games refereed by Carl Cheffers. Cheffers is this year at least he called the most penalties of any official. He's not working with the same crew in this game. It's like an all-star crew, but I do think maybe the better referees are the ones who are going to have that eye for things like that. I think you look at when you've got 2 talented pass rushes, you're going to have a few more holding penalties. It's one of those things where it just takes one holding to erase a 30-yard play that resets you 3 minutes and maybe 6 points, and that's the difference between the overhitting and the underhitting. So I think there's a lot working against the total here. It would not surprise me if this game is 38-34 when it's all said and done, but I think if I had to make a pick here, I'd go the under.
Yeah, he if I remember correctly,
Carl?
Carl, good to see you. ref that Kansas City Tampa Bay Super Bowl.
He did, yeah.
And that had a lot of flags in the first
half. A lot
half.
of, I think it was
against
like
Kansas City as
it
well.
was like 11 penalties against Kansas City. Yeah,
so not saying he's got it out for him, but there's a track record there.
Yeah, there certainly is. So that's something to keep in mind.
And the interesting thing about that 11-1 to the under too is it's by a pretty wide margin.
Yeah.
I think it's by like an average of almost
10 points
a
12,
game or
more,
something like that. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's I don't know how much it means, but it's a data point nonetheless.
Yep.
So do with it what you want.
And we can only do with what we have. So that's the story of our life. All right. So we've got the side, got the total. Let's do MVP. You got an MVP bet. I don't like your MVP bet. It's boring.
Well, that's what.
But I get
But
it.
aren't they always
They
boring
are,
for the most part? Like so. All right. I'm gonna make a pick. I'm gonna take Jalen Hurts.
There's
if
a difference
taking the
between a
Eagles
pick and
to
a bet.
win.
Yeah.
Like
I got
that's the play for me. Because all right. Here's the thing: is that like you're getting, and this is only the second time in the last 20 years the top two on the MVP board have shorter than plus 200 odds.
Ugh, I don't like that.
And obviously, it's both quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But I think by virtue of that happening, you're inherently getting some value on a quarterback, right? Because like it's not like you got Mahomes or Hurts sitting there at minus 130 or whatever. Instead, you're getting it's kind of diversified a little bit where you're getting
I get
both at plus money.
I understand what you're saying, but I'd probably rather just wear the 60 cents and bet Eagles money line if I felt that strongly about it. I understand what you're saying. Like they're basically telling you it's going to be one of the quarterbacks.
Well, all right. Well, would you? So I mean, the chances are it's going to be the quarterback.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna take the money line, why don't you just take the quarterback to win?
That's a fair point too. No, because I think taking the money line eliminates
yourself.
Yeah, right.
But if the likelihood is that it's going to be a quarterback, like I think. Let's see. I look at the money line from a Chiefs standpoint.
The Chiefs one I think is different than the Eagles.
All right, so like say that the Chiefs money line is plus 105, I think it was at DraftKings, and MVP odds at plus 125. So there's better value on Mahomes, but obviously
the Chiefs I think it applies more than the Eagles because I think the Eagles the odds are shorter that they're going to win the game, and I think they have more. Or no, the odds are shorter for Hurts.
More weapons,
and there's more options. I think it's more likely that someone other than Hurts wins the MVP if the Eagles win. Whereas I think if the Chiefs win, it's going to have to be either just a historic game from Jones or Kelsey. Otherwise, it's going to Mahomes.
So all right, so it's a long-winded way of saying Jalen Hurts is my pick. But I was gonna say I was gonna get into who else I like, but I think you're eyeing the guy that I also like.
So I have two. They're not quarterbacks. One is a longer shot, and one is a moon shot. But I will take for the argument or the sake of this argument, I will take AJ Brown, and I think this is a class in shopping around because the best I could find was 16-1 at Sportsbet at PointsBet. He was 14-1 at Caesars and 12-1 at DraftKings, but I thought NESN betting analyst Claudia Bellafato wrote a good story last week or made a couple of good points about she was on the over like one of his receiving yards prop, but she said she made a good point. He's averaged 8.5 yards, 8.5 targets per game, 88 yards per game in the regular season. His numbers in the playoffs haven't been as good, but no kidding, they led 28-0 at halftime against the Giants, and then the San Francisco game was a glorified scrimmage. You look at Kansas City finished second to last against number one wideouts. I think that's by DVOA. So they've struggled. Did I say San Francisco? I meant to say Kansas City. Either way, Chiefs have struggled against elite wideouts. That's no surprise. Most teams do. So I think, he's going to get the volume. I think he's going to have the chances. I also look at this. Kansas City ranked 30th in the NFL by DVOA at defending what are defined as short middle passes. In those same plays, Jalen Hurts ranked third in the NFL. And I think you look at, that was a real big issue for them last year. They could not exploit the middle of the field. Getting A.J. Brown has completely changed that, and it's not surprising. The second highest rate of in routes run by receivers this season, A.J. Brown. So I think he's, this has, for me, the makings of the TO game from the, coincidentally, the Eagles-Patriots, where it's the dude's just running around the field. You get the ball in his hands and see ya. I think, he's going to have to score a touchdown or two to get there, but I like the value here a little bit more. Hurts, I'm not entirely sold on because I think there's some volatility there, despite the fact that he was really good for most of the season in protecting the ball. But when he came back from that shoulder injury, he ranked 9th in the NFL in turnover-worthy plays. So maybe he throws 1 or 2 picks in this game that kind of eliminates him, for lack of a better word. So I think there's some value in A.J. Brown there. I think an alternative bet that I also saw was 120-plus receiving yards was plus 475. So that might be a nice little consolation. So I'd be on Brown here.
Yeah, I mean, the volume you would think is going to be there. And that's a huge thing when it comes to looking at.
So you go out, you trade for this guy, Super Bowl, let it all hang in line, maybe it'll be a close game. It all points to him getting a ton of work.
It's volume, and it's volume that could lend itself to a big performance. He could get into the end zone a couple of times.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the red zone targets, 18 of them, 35% of the targets in the red zone for the Eagles this year. I don't know if you mentioned this, but the Chiefs, if there's a weakness in that defense, it's been against top tier wide receivers. Number one in wideouts have given them problems this year.
I did say that,
yeah. And so I look back at A.J. Brown's performance against Chicago, another team.
Sure.
Who, stinks against
bad secondary, yep.
What
do you do in that game?
181.
That's pretty good. That would probably win him the MVP.
So it may be that's a high bar to clear, but I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that you get something like that, a 7, 8, 9 catch kind of game, $150. In which case, if you have Hurts, like you said, with some suppressed numbers because of a lingering
it's
ailment,
hard though because the problem with betting a receiver here is it just takes 2 or 3 runs for Jalen Hurts to end up with 50 yards rushing as well, and it's that looks nice.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Hurts is like I said, I that's my pick by virtue of just being the quarterback on the winning team, but his stat line is a tough one to gauge relative to if Mahomes wins it, you're probably going to look and he's probably going to have 300 some odd yards and 3 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
Whereas Hurts, he might throw for $120, but then he might rush for 100 and get in the end zone a couple times. Maybe throw in a 2-point conversion. Maybe get an octopus in there.
Ooh.
If you want to get real nasty.
14-1 at DraftKings for the octopus.
Yeah, it could be a far more interesting stat line. But as far as and then I look at it I'm not even touching defensive players.
I've heard the arguments. It just feels I don't know. If Aaron Donald couldn't win it last year with a good, not great Cooper Kupp game, I don't know. It's going to have to be a 17-13 game, and
you're going to need. Yeah, that's the thing too. Is if this plays anywhere near the total, that obviously limits the number of possibilities.
Got to be a pick 6 or something.
You need a pick 6, and I don't know. Do I really want to roll the dice on a deflected ball falling into the hands of somebody for their second interception that looks good in the box score, but is really not really
and if you think that's
what happened,
and if you do think there's gonna if it takes a pick 6, it takes a scoop and score, then go bet defensive touchdown score instead.
Yeah,
it's a lot less, but it's far more likely that you have so many more outs. So one long shot I like Kenneth Gainwell, 100-1, 100-1. Yeah. If the game plays out like the Giants game did, which is unlikely, but I just got done talking about how I would not be totally shocked to see the Eagles on a route. He ran for 112 of their 268 rushing yards, ran for a touchdown. His snap numbers are up. He's had 37% or more snaps in 4 of the last 6 games after not doing it through 14 weeks. He's a decent pass catcher. If they have middle of the field issues, it rears its head there. I don't know. Hasn't been a running back for MVP since Terrell Davis, though. So.
If you're on the Chiefs, maybe a little Kadarius Toney. He's also
is he healthy?
He's a little banged up.
I just can't see voters giving it to Kadarius Toney.
Yeah.
If Kadarius Toney has a game that could get him the MVP, they're just going to give it to Mahomes.
Which, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But 100-1one if you want.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
because I do look back and there was a couple. I think it was that game against Jacksonville where, especially around the goal line, there were finding ways to get it in his hands. That's the thing too. It's like with the Chiefs, you just gotta hope that they get so creative that some guy stumbles into a few touchdowns.
Yeah, right. It's true. So, all right. Well, speaking of stumbling into touchdowns, let's do what everybody likes the most or whatever. Props. I
don't even know where to begin with props.
It's a robust market, and I think like you talk about,
I was in quicksand this morning.
It's tough, and like you sit there and like I think for a lot of people when you say let's talk about props, their mind quickly goes to like coin toss, national anthem, Gatorade, and those are fine. We've got some good stuff on that coming at NESNbets.com this week, kind of looking at like how do bookmakers set those lines and things like that, but. I don't know. I will say they're kind of funky, but they're mostly looking at actual on-field stuff. So, like, if you have a read on like Gatorade, good for you, I guess. I just don't really. I don't know, but it's tough to figure out where you want to start. More often than not, they're going to probably follow your lean in terms of like the side and the total, obviously. And I think it's probably smart to just lean toward unders for most of the time.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I was reading something earlier that this came from the assistant director of trading at the Caesars Sportsbook, who said that sharps will usually bet no in the under, and the public will usually bet yes in the over.
Yeah,
which makes sense. So, I read that and I'm like, I'm looking for unders and nos, and I'm looking at those types of bets that offer somewhat favorable prices. Sure. Like, what can I get? What unders can I get at plus money or a low vig that like I can sprinkle a little something on there? Because I think everybody's natural inclination is to be like, oh, I think this guy's gonna go off.
Yep.
And as a result, yeah, the over is gonna be the total is gonna be set pretty damn high.
Well, it's all. I mean, that stuff is all considered. It's all baked into the line and stuff. So I don't know. So what do you?
That being said, I'm looking at some of the props.
What overs are you on?
I didn't even, no, I'm not. For the purposes of this exercise, I didn't take any overs or unders really. Now that I think of it, yeah. You want me to fire off one?
Just give me something.
All right. You want to talk fluky? So the jersey number of the first touchdown scorer.
Yeah. Okay. Following.
Taking under 11.5.
Okay. So that. What does that open you up to
minus
here?
130. So
it's Jalen Hurts.
It's not a great number, but I mean you are getting the creme de la creme here.
So is
Philadelphia?
What was? Excuse me. I'm sorry. What was the number?
11.5.
11.5. Okay, so that opens up.
So that includes your MVP pick.
Correct. Exactly.
So from a Philly standpoint, you get Jalen Hurts, you get Devontae Smith, you get AJ Brown. The Chiefs standpoint, you're going to get Jerick McKinnon, Juju Smith-Schuster, Isaiah Pacheco, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Granted, Travis Kelce could throw a wrench in this, and
so
I think he's probably the odds-on favorite here to get into the end zone first. But I think from a Philly standpoint, I like the choices that I'm.
Bet 2 units on
being dealt there.
Bet 2 units on the under there, and then bet 1 on Travis Kelce, and just hope it's not Patrick Mahomes who scores the first touchdown. I like that. I love this. I've talked about this all the time. I think Sam Panayotovich might have something touching on this for NESNbets.com. It's something I've chatted with him about in the past. I actually heard him talk about it on one of the shows. I mean, the myriad shows on NESNbets.com and NESN for betting these days is fantastic. But I love any props having to do with anyone other than the quarterbacks throwing. I just enjoy those. It's like my favorite bet every year. Yeah. I think in the Super Bowl you just see it all the time. I mean, even the last.
I would think with these two teams especially.
So it's something we've seen in the past. So I'm going a little differently. And Sam was talking about this. There's just no value left on like over 2.5 pass throwers. So I've got non-quarterback touchdown pass, 22-1 at DraftKings.
Okay,
I like it. Travis Kelce is the guy I look at. He had a touchdown pass last season or the year before in the playoffs. He has 4 career pass attempts. They like to run that little like pop pass at the goal line. I think there's a chance there. Did we have a touchdown pass last year by a position player? Was it not? Or was that 2 years ago? Maybe there's a ball into the end zone. We had this conversation in the office. It was something I forget. So I just think there's a chance to have that happen. By a similar, in a similar boat, I have. Or not have, but I saw Any player to have a completion, a reception, and a rush is 9-1. That also brings the quarterbacks into the mix, obviously. So
I'd like to find like an alternate line
Touchdown.
and have over 3.5 guys throw a pass.
that'd be sick.
2 on each side, you know? I think both teams could have a little wrinkle.
It's possible. I will say though, this doesn't mean it won't happen. The Eagles did not have anyone other than Jalen Hurts and Gardner Minshew throw a pass this year. But that could mean they're just holding it for the Super Bowl.
You know, don't want to give everything away.
Do you have anything else?
So speaking of NESN bets his own Sam Panayotovich, I know he'll back me on this bet as well. I think he talked about this last year when we had him on. The opening kickoff.
Yeah. There's no value left. This one I actually saw him mention on Lunchline today on NESNBets.com.
To be a touchback.
He said there's no value in this anymore.
See, I don't think it's all that different than it was last year. The line.
No, but like if you go back like 5 years ago, it was. Right. It's sharpened since. Yes, right. I don't think there's a whole lot of year-over-year difference though this year.
But no, plus 175. 28 of the last 32 opening kickoffs have actually been returned. And the more I think of this, like if I'm the guy that's tasked with catching the opening kickoff, I'm taking that back. I'm not.
That's a fair point.
You know, people like nobody's gonna remember if you return it to the 15-yard line and get tackled or whatever. Well, like you don't botch it, like you don't.
It's a good point because like everyone wants to talk about the kicker. Like there's that Pat McAfee thing where he's like they use those. It's like you're not using the kick. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
so there could be something to that.
Sure, but like I think your point is just as good. Is that like I'm trying to take this thing out.
I'm trying to take it to the house. Everybody's gonna remember you. You will go down in Super Bowl history.
Not only
if you return it to the 15, nobody's gonna remember by the end of the game.
Not only that, you are like no one is ever as nervous as they are as the guy who's about to catch the opening kickoff.
Yeah.
The best way to get over those nerves is to get smacked.
Take it out.
Yeah, take a hit. Out. Get adjusted to this game right away. Get walloped even if it's at the 15-yard line.
To talk to a few guys who've been in that position.
Make me feel alive.
Be like, were you just gonna take it out regardless?
Yeah,
because I know that would be my mindset. It's like I don't care if I catch this on the back end line.
I'd have to see
taking this thing out.
I'd have to see the touchback numbers because there are guys who just like smoke it through the end zone.
Well, so I could throw a few of those.
Sure.
So just under 60% of kickoffs during the regular season this year were resulting in touchbacks. That's league wide.
Yeah.
Jake Elliott, 69% of his kicks were touchbacks.
Oh, wow.
Harrison Butker, 64. So, but I mean that's why there's plus value on it. So plus 175, I think is what I saw at DraftKings. Yeah, last year was a touchback. So, and we've seen it more frequently, too, since they've moved the kickoff in, like, 2010 or whatever that was. So, yeah. So, to Sam's point from earlier, the value is shrinking on it. But I'm willing to see if last year was if we get back on track this year with the
who needs value?
The whole thing.
Sticking with special teams, I'm taking the under 6.5 total punts, plus 116 at FanDuel. Philly is one of the most aggressive teams in the NFL this season when it comes to going for it on fourth down. Chiefs don't go for it a lot at all on fourth down, which you could say, oh, Andy Reid, old school, blah, blah, blah. I will say, though, I looked it up. So he's been to the Super Bowl 3 times. In the most recent Super Bowl he went to, they punted 3 times, and they went for it on fourth down 3 times. The Super Bowl before that, the one against San Francisco that they won, they punted just twice and went for it. And they still went for it 3 times on the game that they won. They punted 5 times and went for it no times against the Patriots way back in 2004 or whatever. But like that might as well have been a different sport. I think, it's kind of hard to be on the under here when I'm also on the under for the total.
That is like one of the trickiest parts of spreading out your money across so many different props. Is that you find yourself like,
there's a way to lose them all, too.
Like you think about how the game's going to play out, and that's probably a very square way of looking at it. Like I think the game's going to go this way, and like you try to make all your bets align with that, that outcome.
Yeah, which is a bad idea, by the way.
Or there's just like the other way is to just
scatter it,
willy nilly. Just throw a bunch of crap at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah,
you find yourself in that situation though, where you're like, "Oh, that completely goes against my other bet.
Yeah, this is just lined up for, if I were to make these bets, it'd be on the under, and then the under with the punts, it would be just a punt fest through 3 quarters, and they would get red hot. The final score would be 28-24 or something like that, and it would just lose them both. But yeah, I think if I had to bet anything, it'd be on under punts over field goals, and that gets us to the under for the total.
Nice.
I don't know. Do you have any other ones before we get into our grand finale?
I'll give you one more.
Okay.
Because it kind of plays off that a little bit. So I'm looking at head-to-head field goals.
Okay.
So this brings back the
as one does
the knack for Philadelphia for going for it on fourth down this year. So head-to-head field goals, I'm going to take Harrison Butker of the Chiefs laying half a field goal.
Okay.
And you're getting that at plus 140.
All right.
Oh
wow.
So you already mentioned Philadelphia, like I said, go for it a lot on fourth down. Succeed a lot on fourth down too. So pretty good at it. And I think I get the sense Nick Sirianni is going to be in his own head going for it on
that's
fourth
why,
down
like,
in this game.
The quarterback touchdown pass too, or like the passers, is like, I can see them be like, we're not afraid of anyone. We're doing a bunch of cool stuff.
Like, especially if you really want to go back and like how Doug Peterson handled that Super Bowl against the Patriots.
True,
and, like, he's going to want to leave his mark
that's
on this
a good
game.
point. Yeah.
He's a little, he's out there. So that whole thing. Philadelphia tied with Tennessee for the fewest field goal attempts per game this year. Kansas City don't stop anybody in the red zone. 30th in opponent red zone scoring percentage. So once they get down, there's a good chance that Philly might just punch it in. Jake Elliott, only one game with more than 2 field goal attempts this year. That was week 18. Harrison Butker, 5 such games this year, and he missed 4 regular season games. So I think there's a pretty good chance that he's going to end up kicking more field goals than Jake Elliott. So that's basically what this bet is. You're just laying the half field goal, and you're getting plus value on it.
There you go.
I like it. I'm in. Sign me up.
I couldn't find these anywhere. I just saw one that was in like an Odd Shark story that they didn't list where they got it. So who knows where this is coming from. Over 10 penalties is even money. Again, we talked about Sheffers. Also, South Point Casino in Vegas has this, so I'm not going to Vegas, but if it were, maybe I'd look at this one. Roughing the passer, yes, plus 130. Kansas City has committed 17 roughing the passer penalties in the last 100 games. Sheffers has called 5 of them, despite just reffing 10 of their games. I don't know. Also, too, like, Jalen Hurts feels like the kind of guy that gets roughed because he just is moving around a lot more. They're going to want to protect Mahomes as well. It feels like there's a lot of way to get.
Is it 10 penalties? I think he had 8 in the first half of that Super Bowl against Tampa Bay.
Sure, yeah. So plus 130 for roughing the passer. Also, too, I wanted to mention this. I have made this bet. I'm afraid to admit it already. This is, I don't even care. Like, you can ridicule people. Like, I saw a respected person in the space being like, I can't believe this is one of the highest bets already. Exact score. Philly 37, Kansas City 34. It was a viral tweet that somebody fudged with like the screen or something, but there's like a football reference page that already has the Super Bowl for this game already set, and like the box score is there. And like, I don't think the fix is in. I'm not telling you the fix is in.
Arian Foster is retweeting.
Right, yeah. I don't think the fix is in. I just think it's going to be this massive story if this game ends 37-34 and people are going to make a big deal out of it. And like, I want to be part of this story. Yep. So I've gotten some money down on 80-1 of the Eagles winning 37-34. I just want to get that out there before we get to the end. So there's that. All right. We have a couple minutes. We got to get out of here. We've been here too long as it is. We have one more little prop thing. We wanted, since this is a video medium, like we're not supposed to be looking at the video. I understand people are technically watching us. More people consume this on well, nobody consumes it, but listens to it on get it through NESNbets.com or wherever you find your podcast. We're bringing it back to the old school show and tell, something we used to do, and this is a solely a video podcast with our dearly departed Andre Kachaturian. We figured let's bring it back. We can describe it for the audio listeners. We'll just do it one time to get home with a couple prop bets. So why don't you go first? You want your show and tell? Yeah.
By the way, thank you for bringing this.
Of course, yeah.
Kind of scrambling earlier. You superstitious?
We're about to find out.
So
no, I'm not.
So you're not gonna yell at me when I?
No, I don't even know if that works.
Open up this.
So you got an umbrella. You have
well, I asked because I didn't know if you're into.
I know. Yeah.
Black cats and voodoo and whatnot. I did this one time at a bar. I opened an umbrella inside, and you would have thought I pulled my pants down. The way the crowd reacted.
It is kind of reckless.
This is So I'm looking at the halftime show, obviously.
Okay, yeah, of course.
And I don't even know where I got these odds.
Who
With
cares?
Rihanna performing the halftime show, I'm gonna say Umbrella, Ella.
Hey.
It'll be her last song.
Last song.
Last
wow.
song. I
just gonna
did see
dump
one bet out
umbrellas
there
all
that
over
was
the-
plus 175 for her to open an umbrella. So I'd like to get a little scratch on that.
Sure.
But if I can't get that, I'll just take last song plus 200. I believe that is the favorite. So she's going to close with that. I also like Jay-Z to appear on stage, but I don't like the value on that. Minus 225. But you got to think there's a little natural segue there. You get, there's some diamond overlap in some of their songs. You get the umbrella might come back into play. There's a Rock Nation involvement. Yeah.
Okay, I like that. So you brought in an umbrella for Rihanna's Super Bowl halftime. Okay.
I block these bright lights too.
Yeah, that too. I like that. I almost brought in my guitar that I don't ever play for the over on the.
You shred?
Yeah,
Rick
no,
Boogs?
not really. Rick Boogs. Chris Stapleton doing the anthem. Speaking of music, I think if he plays the guitar, he probably goes over. Do people play the? Yeah, okay. Do people play the guitar when they do the anthem? I'm not even entirely certain. It feels like the anthem is kind of opened big and then been shrunk down. Like Luke Bryan, the last country guy to do it, was under by like 5 seconds or something. That's a pretty considerable amount. Anyway, I've got to open up my folder because my computer has died. So Westgate in Vegas, they give you the cross sport props. I'm going to the greater from my driver here. My golf club. I got a ping driver, smash it down the fairway. Yeah. I brought it. It just signifies golf. But I would like to grab one of these Westgate bets. I've got Colin Morikawa in the 4th round of the Western Waste Management Phoenix Open this week. I'm taking him. Fairways hit minus 0.5 over Chiefs Eagles first quarter points. So Morikawa, there are 14 non-par threes at TPC Scottsdale. He is second in driving accuracy this season. He is second in the field in fairways gained over his last 24 rounds. He's finished second and third in his last 2 starts. He made the cut here in 2020, his only start at Phoenix. So he's going to be around for the weekend. Like I said, he hits the ball straight. The first quarter total is set at over under 9.5 with a little bit of juice to the over. But the last 6 years, the first quarter is averaging just 7 points. I think he hits 12 fairways. That gets me home probably. I think this is going to, we have seen low scoring.
Seen plenty of slow starts.
Exactly.
In the Super Bowl.
Exactly. Even you go back to 2017, that was Patriots Eagles. 12 points in that first quarter in a game that ended up having 74 points scored. So, slow starts across the board. I think Colin Morikawa is going to pull the driver a lot.
What's he laying at? A half?
Half. So he's got to, I got to beat him. Yeah. So I'm hoping for a very low scoring.
The Harrison Butker field goals.
Yeah. So, I got my G400. I felt bad. I'm a ping guy. I don't think he's a ping guy, but you can only do so much. Yeah. So yeah, that's that.
You took a punt prop too, huh? You're looking for it's just a real rock fight.
I don't know. It's gonna be bad. So, are you gonna be betting?
Yeah, probably.
Are you going to any of the local casinos?
So,
yeah.
The thing is, I don't know how busy it's gonna be, but yeah,
I'm gonna try to stay away from that. Might go up to New Hampshire to get some action down.
Stop by and see how it is, see how it goes. Yeah, it's nice to have that at our disposal now, being in the great state of Massachusetts.
Sure, this is probably the last Super Bowl we don't have mobile betting. Then next year we can just bet on punts as we go.
Live punt bets.
So if you are going to be betting, if you're in a state where you've got all the good stuff, go to NESNbets.com. We've got the live odds page where you can get 6 of the best sports books across the country. You can get consensus data.
Yeah, that live odds page rocks.
It is pretty cool.
It's been a great resource throughout the season. So,
and we'll have we've got a ton of NESN Super Bowl content, or excuse me, NESN Bets Super Bowl content at NESNbets.com. We got the landing page and everything, so go there, check out all that information. We've got a bunch of people on this. You and I will have I guess there's no point in us doing our picks post this week, considering we just got to everything. But we'll have a ton of stuff throughout the week at NESNbets.com, so go check that out. Ricky, it has been a blast as always. I think we will do this again next season, assuming neither of us gets fired.
I would hope so, yeah. And if we do, we'll take it offline.
Oh yeah, and if we
do it
do,
somewhere
and
else.
if we get fired, we'll blame it on you opening the umbrella.
That's
in the
true
middle
too.
of
I set us up
door.
for failure.
Yeah, probably. So, all right, Ricky, enjoy the football game.
Yeah, you as well.
I'll see you next year. Goodbye.